Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Alestral's deck profile for you. Coming at you with Frostmill again, although this time I am not on the Waylance build. I wanted to try Frostmill again, especially with Moonrise right around the corner, right? And a lot of support for this deck coming in on that set. So I wanted to try it out before that stuff came out just to get more of a feel for the deck. And also just try to get more acquainted with it because I think this deck can be a little bit trickier to play than it might look like it does, and I've definitely noticed that in my own experience playing with it. It's often really easy to make really strong opening plays with this deck, but sometimes closing out a game can be a little bit difficult. Now, I think the Snowlet into Blizzardstrix line could definitely help with that for sure. But of course, I do think it is still worth practicing with the deck now to get a feel for it before that new stuff comes out. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's just go ahead and start diving right on into it. Starting off with 3 copies of Monolith. This is definitely the main focus of the deck and one of my favorite aspects of it. Monolith, like all the other lists, can be normal cast for 2 of its respective spirit type if you meet a condition. Monolith's condition is that your opponent has fewer Alestrals in their underworld than you do, which is trivially easy to fulfill. Even on turn 1, we can very easily put our own Alestrals in our underworld, meaning that this is like one of the few lists you can very consistently and reasonably expect to cast on turn 1. Which being able to drop a 2-spirit 6/4 on turn 1 is such a strong opening play. And the milling 5 of your own cards is something that we want to be doing in this deck. So definitely the highlight of the deck. A lot of people call this deck Snowman for that reason there. So for other 2 spirits, we're also playing 2 Cryovern, and then of course along with 3 Cryoling to go with them. I am actually loving this engine the more that I play it. I first tried it out in the Rhinosex Turbo deck, and thought this would be a pretty good natural fit for it as well. That said, I think once the Snowlet into Blizzardstrix line comes out, that'll probably end up replacing these in this deck, in this build in particular, but these are still very good Frost cards in their own right. The Cryoling, of course, starts out as a 1/3, but gains 1 attack for every Frost Spirit in your underworld. And then during your main phase, while it has 6 or more attack, you have to either destroy it, or, ideally, just special send it to a Cryovern from your deck there. Now, we're not playing Cryo Scorch, but you could play Cryo Scorch if you wanted to. That's actually not bad in this deck. But we're not playing Cryo Scorch, we're just going into Cryovern for the 7/4 body. And because of that, I'll often misenchant the Cryovern with water when I cast it, which allows it to attack into a Tsunami, which is becoming more and more popular currently. So that's often how you'll enchant the Cryovern there. Another engine that we're playing in this deck is the Morfrost engine. We're playing 3 Lycan form along with 2 Indus form. So the Lycan form can be discarded, of course, along with an Expent Frost Spirit in order to search for up to 2 Morfrosts that are not Lycan form for your deck to your hand. That's going to be the Indus form, which when you cast will let you send the other 2 Lycan form from your deck to the graveyard, providing some much needed deck thinning. And also when it's destroyed in battle, you can destroy a face down rune, which is a pretty strong effect. Now, when Moonrise comes out, I kind of actually want to try Scorpio form, which I know a lot of people read Scorpio form, they think it's just terrible, but I think there is an interesting application, right? Because if you were to go discard Lycan form to search Scorpio form and Bat form, right? Scorpio form effect to discard Bat form to give your opponent's, or to drop your opponent's Alestral's defense down to 0, and then you can expend 2 to pop it during the end of the turn. That'll also trigger the Bat form, which will let you special cast the Lycan form from the underworld. So, the current setup with the Indus form right now is pretty good. I wouldn't be surprised if this is just what continues to be correct moving forward. But I will say the Scorpio form does give you a line of interactivity off of Lycan form that also gets you multiple bodies on board. So I think that's worth exploring. But we'll have to see how good that actually ends up being. I will be trying it when I update this Frost build for Moonrise, for sure. 2 copies of Infrostrix, although I want to play a 3rd. I was noticing that. I've noticed that actually during not just these games, but games I've played with the Waylance build too. It feels like if you're not drawing Infrostrix, to me, I don't know, in my very few games I've played with this deck, if you're not drawing Infrostrix, it becomes a lot more difficult to win. This gets us like a lot of stuff that we care about that gets milled, namely the Cryoling into Cryovern, as well as another Alestral I'll talk about here in a moment, but I was always ecstatic to have this card in my hand, and there were a ton of times playing this deck where I really, really wish I had it in hand. I've also only ever played 2 copies in a Frost Mill deck, so I think moving forward, I'm probably just going to play 3. I imagine 3 is going to be pretty important too if you're focusing on the Snowlet line, to be able to bring your Snowlet back to be able to actually ascend as you're milling into stuff, so we'll have to see how that pans out. And 2 copies of Catarant. This is the other Frost Celestial that I like to bring back within Frost Tricks. Recovering the Frost Spirits is so important, especially in the late game. This deck also does tend to spend quite a few spirits early. Not to the extent that like Rhino Sex Turbo build did, but enough that the Catarant is definitely still extremely valuable in this deck. So that's it for Frost Celestials. We have a few more Celestials. 3 copies of Narpoon. Pretty obvious. It searches any of our Frost dudes. That's our only Water Celestial. I thought about playing Eddie in this deck, but ultimately just could not find room for it, even though we are playing Water. 3 Astrabbit. It's an Celestials deck. Again, I might actually end up making that video at some point, the Let's Actually Talk About Staples video. And then 1 Lavalith. You know, I had the room, and I was like, this thing I've been wanting to try more and more in Celestials decks is just playing the random Lavalith, if you have the room in the main deck and the room in the Spirit deck for the fires. And we did on both counts here. This also kind of made me want to try out Rise from the Ashes to be able to bring this back. But I don't know. I didn't really have any other good Rise targets, and Rise is so expensive. Not in terms of monetary value, but in terms of, like, spirit cost, right? So, yeah. The one of Lavalith is interesting. I'll try it out again moving forward. Not just in this deck, but I'll try it in more decks, too, I think, moving forward. That's it for Celestials in general. For Runes, we're playing just 1 copy of Kione. I don't know. I will say, it's kind of difficult for me to not think of Kione as just a worse than Frost Tricks. I think they occupy a lot of the same space, but Kione, I think the biggest pro for her in this deck is that she's repeatable. And there are a lot of times where you do want to be returning, you know, Celestials over multiple turns to get back in the game. I think 1 copy of this card is fine in the deck. 2 Cryoblast. This card got a lot of hype. Well, it's funny. This card's kind of been on a roller coaster of play, right? When it was first revealed, people were kind of like, meh, it seems okay. Then it was used in 5s when it first came out, and it got super hyped. Everyone was like, oh, we all just main Cryoblast now. Now it's kind of gone back down into, meh, it's okay territory, right? There are some decks that'll go out of their way to main deck it still, a few that side deck it. We're already playing Frost, so I think playing 2 copies for us is not a big ask. Earthquake, because this removal is good enough that you just play 2 Earth for it. And then, of course, we have Ambro, and then Resting on Your Laurels. So that'll be it for the Invokes. For the counter runes, we have 2 Tsunami, 3 Gorgons, and 3 PTA. Fewer counter runes than I normally play, but it's still 8. That's still a pretty solid amount. It's like, it's a 5th of your deck, right? And, we're so focused on the milling that we don't have a room for a lot of these counter runes, right? Both in terms of, like, actual space in the deck and also, like, we don't want to be milling a ton of good counter runes, right? So, that is it for the main deck. For the extra deck, jeez. For the Spirit deck, rather. It's 3 Leviathan, because we were only on 3 Narpoon, 2 Tsunami for our Waters. 2 Zaptor for our 3 Astrabbit. 2 Vipyro for our Lavalith. 2 Tyralis for our Earthquake, and that's, what, 6? That's 9, so that means we have 11 Flormine. That's a little low. I will say, I have had not quite a few. I have had games where it's really easy to get low on Flormine. Now, we have Catarant, so it's easy to recover them too, but if you do find yourself very consistently not having enough Flormine and you want to make a change to the deck in order to accommodate that, probably just drop Lavalith and then cut the Vipyros for 2 more Flormines would be the way to do it. But that'll do it for the list. Now let's go ahead and take a look at these. I think it's only 1 game this time. Let's take a look at this game here.
Alright, let's get into this game against Queso, who is once again on the Dewdrop Water Thunder, Wet Thunder, whatever you want to call it, deck there. We are going to be starting off with a mulligan here. You already see a couple of Frost Spirits in my Underworld for that reason. This is definitely a deck where you shouldn't be afraid to mulligan, especially because that does actually help our Cryolane get online even earlier. So for this hand, I'm simply going to start off with a defense mode. Morfrost Indus form, and then pass. No face down cards to follow it up. I forgot until a little bit, but I do remember here eventually that, yeah, I need to be milling cards with the Indus form. So I'm like, oops, yeah, let me do that real quick before I actually pass back over to you. So, yeah, I do want to mill these Lycan forms, even though I haven't drawn one yet. Just setting up the Alestrals in our graveyard is, of course, always good. And on top of that, we do want to make sure that we're not going to be dead drawing these later. Like, yeah, we have more Indus, or we have the other Indus form to search, but I'm really not trying to expend one Frost Spirit to do that necessarily, just for one search there, so... Alright, the Jolton is coming down here. It's going to grab the Mount Olympus, and I was double-checking the Indus form because it does say face-down runes, if I remember right. So, very wisely, Queso will elect not to set anything before swinging the Jolton over the Indus form there. Not really sure why I put it in defense mode. I mean, I guess it's a 2-1, so it didn't really matter anyway, but now that we have our graveyard loaded up, we can run out this Monolith here. So, going to mill the top 5 cards of our own deck with the Monolith. We had a Cryoling, Lavalith is in there, as well as Astrabbit and a couple of runes there. So the Cryoling is not a bad mill. Now that's in there. Like, if we had an Frostrix in hand, this would be so good. I could go into a, what would that be, a 4-attack Cryoling? Well, it would be a... Oh, no, I do have the Frostrix. Look at that. Okay, so it's a 5-attack, I believe, because I now have 4 Frost Spirits in the yard. Or is this 6? No, this is 6, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make 6 attacks. So you need 6 attack, 5 spirits. Yeah, so I mean, this is just about one of the better starts that you could hope for in this deck, right? On turn 2, we have 2 2-spirit Alestrals online. We have the Morlith and the Cryovern. Gonna grab another spirit for that Cryovern there. And I do decide to put on a water, like I said in the deck profile portion. This helps with making the Cryovern immune to the Tsunami. Now we can swing over Jolton and then swing in for 2 with the Morlith for a total of 3 spirits of damage. So definitely not bad. There are some games where you can do that on turn 1. Like if you open Lycan form in Frostrix Morlith and then you mill the Cryoling on the Morlith, you could do that on your first turn potentially as well. But Queso's going to follow up with the resting on your laurels, a very, very powerful counterplay to my current board, going to hit the Morlith there, which I thought was kind of interesting, because the Cryovern does have 1 more attack, but perhaps it was... Oh, you know what? Right, because Galaxy is coming down, and in that case, I do end up suffering for having put the water on the Cryovern. I can PTA, but the Galaxy is going to go down to a 5-0, not a 3-2, so it will still be able to battle over the Cryovern. And yeah, I mean, as swinging as my turn 2 was, now Queso has done an excellent job swinging right back, and I am going to expend 1 more on the PTA to make sure I kill the Galaxy. For those who might be confused about that ruling, I have explained this in previous videos, but it's very counterintuitive, and this might be the first time you're encountering this, so just to make sure that we're all clear on Galaxy versus PTA. The way that stats are calculated in Alestrals, milling another 5 off this Morlith, by the way, the way that stats are calculated in Alestrals is that you calculate plus and minus, and then swaps in stats. So you do that even if the card is already in play. So even a Galaxy that's coming down, if you PTA it, you do the math of -2 attack, so it becomes a 0-5, then it swaps to a 5-0. But even if you, like... Well, Zeus is a bad example because it's a -3. If you gave a Galaxy -2 attack even after it had already been cast, the same would still be true. Again, just how things are ruled and how math is worked out in Alestrals, so... Yeah, got another face-down card, and like I said, another Morlith here. We can battle over the Galaxy with that. Queso's going to play another Galaxy, in this one in defense mode with a Thunder Spirit in conjunction with the Mount Olympus. That's going to give it 6 defense, which unfortunately means that my Morlith can't battle over this here. Sorry about the background noise, by the way. I think they might be, they're doing some construction pretty close to my window here, so you're probably hearing that right now, but anyway. Yeah, I'm going to go for a Catarant in defense mode. I really just don't have a way over this Galaxy. And I'm definitely going to want to put the Catarant in defense mode because I want to play around the Arcolith. I think it might have been a bit greedy to do this. Well, actually the opposite of greedy. I might have been too cautious in doing this. I think I maybe should have started expending to draw, just to try to find an out to this Galaxy. Even a Cryoblast wouldn't kill it, but it would at least put it down to 4 defense, and I'd be able to battle over this Galaxy. And Arclith can come down anyway if, which I think is actually might be about to happen here, if Queso ascends the Arclith over the Galaxy here. Yeah, maybe expending to draw would have been the better call. I think it actually would have in the grand scheme of things, but we'll have to see how things play out. Alright, so Quackle coming down next. Quackle's going to heal 3. That is going to be okay with me. And, of course, Quackle is a 3/4 because of the Mount Olympus. Case is going to set a card before passing it back over to me. Going to draw for turn here. Yeah, that's the thing to remember about Arclith, too, is that it's not if your opponent has 2 more attack position Alestrals than you do. It's just if they have 2 attack position Alestrals. Yeah, so in hindsight, I think these turns were probably the biggest misplays of the game for me. Like, I really don't need to be healing this much right now. I think I really do need to be focusing on getting an out for this Galaxy. And again, playing the Catarants in defense mode doesn't really do anything to play around the Arcalith right now. Okay, so now Queso's going to put a Water Spirit on the Galaxy, which is very interesting. That's going to make it a 6/3. Because remember, it's getting +1/+1 from the Stadium, but now it's also flipped because it has a Water. And a Thunder. It does each. One of each. Zeus will be accompanying that. That now threatens to be able to battle over my Morolith. So that's going to reduce it down to a... What would that be? A 3/1. The Galaxy's going to swing in here. And the battle is going to be successful. Because, yeah, I mean, there's not really anything I can do if I don't have Gorgon's Gaze to stop the attack. Actually, Gorgon's Gaze... Yeah, that would have allowed us to crash there. Oh, Gorgon's Gaze would have been so good there. But Tsunami doesn't do enough. And this deck only plays those 8 counter runes, like mentioned before. So it doesn't really have a lot of defensive options. And now I'm really on the back foot. I'm telling you, Queso's second turn. So the follow-up to the turn where I played Morolith and Cryovern, and he outed both. It was a very well-played turn on his part. Very, very well played. That was a defining moment for this game. So here I get to resting the Galaxy, as well as re-enchant, but when I go to re-enchant the Catarant, it ends up getting hit with the Gorgon's Gaze. So I'm only going to swap one to... Well, I was only going to swap the one with 2 spirits to attack mode and only hit with that, but since that one can't attack, now I'll hit with the one with the 1 spirit on it, right? So another Quackle from Queso. It's going to keep him well in the game, rejuvenating those Thunder Spirits. Oh, very well in the game, because it's only getting back 2 here. Meaning, I don't think he has a 3rd right now. Oh yeah, because the rest of the Thunder Spirits are under Zeus and Mount Olympus. Yeah. But, yeah, he was about to activate Zeus, and then I, told him that, hey, the Catarants are 3/1s, so you can just battle over the defense mode one if you wanted to. Or I think he was more debating if he wanted to battle over the defense mode one more than anything else. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was going to say there was an argument to still keep that one in attack mode anyway and not battle with the other one, but I think that plays around exactly Quackle and would have lost to the Zeus anyway. So I don't think that would have been worth doing. All right, here I'm going to Ambro, deciding to expend water to get back some stuff here. Just going to take a look at what's in my spirit or my underworld real quick. Going to get back a water and then a couple of frosts to go with it here. Basically going +2 frost in my spirit deck. Now, it's funny because I say that it was a misplay to not expend a draw to try to find Cryoblast. I don't even think I have one here. Like, it's not necessarily that, oh, I thought it was a misplay because I ended up drawing Cryoblast. It's more that I should have been playing to my outs more than I was, which was not very much at all. Here I'm going to Narpoon for an Amphostrix. Like I said, this card just ends up being so important so much of the time that I really think I probably should be playing a 3rd copy in this deck. That's how I feel after testing this build anyway. Yeah, so Narpoon being a 4/3 can still battle over the Quackle here. I think I might have called it Elchik earlier by accident. But, yeah, 4/3 stat line. The 4/3 stat line on the Narpoon is so good. All right, now here comes another Jolton. Jolton going to grab Mount Olympus, but of course, remember that Mount Olympus is also already up, so that Jolton's going to come down as a 5-3 with the ability to battle over the Narpoon here. I mean, so this is like the kind of gameplay loop you can get stuck in playing Frost, I find sometimes. A lot of my games playing Frost have gone this way, where even if I have a good start, my opponent outs that, and then now I'm kind of just like spinning my wheels on some pretty mediocre feeling one spirit Alestrals, and like, I don't know, I just, it's not that I question whether the deck is good. I think this is probably a tier 2 deck, but I just can't make it work for me, which makes me think I must be doing something wrong when playing with this deck. In that regard, and I always welcome this, but in that regard, if anybody has gameplay tips or advice, things you notice while watching these games, I definitely do encourage, sharing those. It is always appreciated. All right, so Worm Frostrix expending the 2 spirits here in order to revive a 1 spirit Frost Celestial, which is going to be Catarant. At this point, I'm more focused on just staying alive than actually making progress, which is not a really good spot to be in right now. Like, I could have gotten back Cryoling, but I would have eaten so many of my spirits that I had left. I guess I would have gone down from 6 to 4. Well, no, it would have been 6 to 3, because it's 1 for the Cryoling, 2 for the Cryovern. I think I also have the second Cryovern in my hand, which is definitely unfortunate. Oh yeah, no, look, that's actually exactly what I'm doing here, never mind. Here's the double Misenchanted Cryovern. We're going to use that to battle over the Jolton. Yes, that did actually end up happening. Yeah, I thought I went for Cataract for some reason. Well, I think I was about to, but I decided not to. Anyway. Race to the top. Oh, that sucks. It's going to get rid of my Cataract, so I do still have the 2 spirit and more well-setted Cryoverd, but yeah. Yeah, the thing is, like, I have to be very, very, very mindful of how I spend my Frost Spirits at this point, but unfortunately, by giving the Cryovern a water, I thought a Galaxy was going to come down there, but it turned out to be Eddie. But Eddie plus Zeus is going to be enough to take out the Cryovern here, yeah. I mean, yeah, pros and cons of putting the water on the Cryovern, right? You play around Tsunami, you play into Galaxy. Knowing the matchup I was in, I maybe should have been a little bit more conscious of that, but Queso going to Ambrosia as well. I think this is only fitting, though, because the past couple of games I've shown against Queso, he was just, like, didn't seem like he had the best hands necessarily and was on the back foot the whole time. So now here's a game where I'm going to be on the back foot pretty much the entire time here. Yeah, so there's a lot in my yard. Unfortunately, I've used both in Frostrix. Another reason why I want a third is for grindier games, especially if you end up milling one of them. It's like, it just feels so bad. We do have Kione, though. Gonna give Kione 2 Frost, and then I can use her to get back a Frost 1 Spirit. Which, again, just in the interest of staying alive, is gonna probably end up being Cataract here. I've already used both Cryoverns at this point, so getting Cryoling literally doesn't do anything because it does have to destroy itself. You have to either destroy it or ascend it. If you can't ascend it, that means you have to destroy it. So, yeah, at this point, it's going to kind of turn to Cataract stall while I try to figure out a plan. I do have another Morolith. But is that going to be enough? There are also other ways to build Frost decks, by the way. There is a Frost Nexus list out there with, like, Frigicub and stuff, but I think it's kind of mid, honestly. This is definitely, I think, the better of the ways to play a Frost deck. Like a more pure, quote-unquote, Frost deck. That is. Alright, so going to Kione. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be the exact same thing we did last turn at this point. We're just going to end up using the Kione for the Catarant here. We do have the Cryoblast this time, finally finding one. So we get to use that on Eddie. And the Gorgon's Gaze on the Catarant is brutal. That is awful for our Spirit deck differential here, because I don't get to swing in and I don't get to heal. Meaning I'm effectively down... Well, I guess technically I'm down 1 Spirit on the Gorgons. I was going to say 3, but... It's only 1 because he spent 2 as well. Alright, Toxian burning as it comes down. Mount Olympus also coming down here, and then he gets to battle over the Catarant on top of that. Queso decides not to play the Mount Olympus, I guess deciding that he didn't need it here. Which he didn't. Catarant's only a 3-1, so. Alright, just gonna have to set a card. And, yeah, I'm only at 2 spirits left, so it's pretty brutal. But, I mean, even with a set card, it's pretty much just over at this point, because, well, Queso's going to start with the Ambrosia, paying off the Zeus there, getting back some Thunder Spirits. But, yeah, I mean, he can just put the Thunder on the Toxian, burn me, and then swing in. I do have the Tsunami, but with only a Water and a Thunder left, I'd still be down at 0 spirits at the end of that exchange anyway, so... Yeah, couldn't take the W on this one, but very, very well played game from Queso, of course, there. Thanks for watching it, and thanks for checking out the video. Feel free to sub if you want more Lustrals content posted every other day, but that's going to do it for this one. This is XLex signing out. Hoping you have a fantastic day.